What the dome skid raises the car up, ride height. So when the thing's up in the air, it's harder to drive because.
So here's kind of the Coles Notes version of how this works. An Indy car generates downforce in two different ways: from the wings on the top of the car and from the floor at the bottom. For the floor to generate grip, it needs to be close to the ground. That's just how physics works. As you raise the car up, you lose that downforce from the bottom of the car, and you're relying more on the downforce on the top of the car. Now, when you're driving around by yourself, it doesn't make a huge difference. You can make the numbers match. Where you run into problems is running in dirty air. Running in dirty air, the top of the car is much more affected, right? Because the air is flowing over the wings, and if that air is turbulent, you're going to have more of a loss. The air underneath the car is much less affected by dirty air. So what we're doing by raising the car up is you're taking away the downforce that helps hold the car down in dirty air, putting it on the top where it's much more affected in dirty air. Thus, when you're running behind a guy, net downforce is going to be down. And running with downforce in a corner behind a guy, that's how you set up passes. That's how you make good racing.
Tell the people, Hinch, what's a strake and what will it do?
The strake is a piece that bolts into the diffuser on the bottom of the car that helps speed up airflow, which helps generate downforce. It's a part that you get a lot of downforce for very little drag. It's probably the most efficient way of adding downforce to this car. And without it, like I said, regardless of manufacturer, you're taking a lot of downforce off the floor, making the car reliant on the top of the car, and that's just not what you want when you're talking about racing at these speeds.
Would the Honda and the Chevy drivers lobby to have strakes in for the Indy 500? Would that be the wise thing?
It depends if you're asking them on the record or off the record.
So Chevrolet might have an advantage without a strake?
Obviously, I don't know the details of the other manufacturer's kit. I don't know how it works best, but from all the guys that I've spoken to, we're all sharing the same concern, regardless of what badge is on their arm. And so, like I said, we're all worried about one thing, and that's putting on a great race at the Indy 500. And I think if it was up to the drivers, yeah, you'd be running strakes, no doubt.
But the dome skids, they raise the car.
Yeah.
Should you run strakes? Would strakes help the racing? Should those be mandatory, or is it too early to tell?
So the dome skid, there's no doubt about it, they're a safety improvement. When the car is spinning and going to 90 degrees and past, it reduces the liftoff speed of the car. So there's not a driver or a team in the paddock that's arguing that they're safer. So everyone's fine with that. Where it does make it challenging is from the bottom of the car being rounded, your ride heights have to come up. So that changes some of the aerodynamics, and it also changes the mechanical setup. So there's challenges. Yesterday when we were testing that stuff, we just tested it. We didn't do anything to try to make changes to our setup to make that better. So we've started doing that today, making improvements. We're testing the strakes, which is another device. Part of what IndyCar is looking at to say, do we need these? Do we not? Do they need to be optional? I've had them off today. I've had them on. I'm still a little undecided, but I don't see how it's going to hurt anything. It may help one manufacturer more than the other, but again, that goes back to I only have data from one side. Honda teams only have data from their side. IndyCar is the only group that has it from both sides, so that we're all relying on them to make the right decisions for all parties.
We put the dome skid on. It's safer in a spin, yes, but everybody ignores the fact you have to raise the ride height 10 flats, which makes the car undrivable, therefore unsafe. I'm not one to really ever talk about safety, so it's the normal political fight, but at this point, it's not Honda trying to get an edge. It's Honda trying to even be able to compete.
Yeah, the dome skid's an interesting thing. It obviously raises the car up significantly, and that's a bit nerve-wracking because, really with these cars, when we took the underwing off of them in the past, the sidewalls and the strakes, we lost so much downforce from the underwing. We were relying so heavily on the wings on the top, and that's not necessarily a good thing. So if they do want to raise the car back up and put the dome skid on it, we have to have the sidewalls and strakes, I think, in order to make the racing as good as it was before. But after today of testing, I'll tell you, my car balance was nowhere near as good as last year. Definitely the rear end of the car is very sketchy, which is a sign of this dome skid. So we'll see how we recover from here, but we'll be all right.
It's too early to tell. All I can tell you that is anytime you raise these cars, these open wheel cars that use the underwing so much, anytime you pick that up off the ground, you make that less efficient. You're relying more on topside downforce. It becomes more difficult to drive. It becomes more inconsistent to place the car in the corner. You know, there's that transition from when you enter the corner to when it is in full squat in the banking. In between those two is where it's most difficult to place the car the further you pick it up, and that's what I felt with the dome skid.
Do you get any idea, right? Will they keep it, or was it just, you think it'll be kept for the?
I'm not sure. I'm hearing that it will be kept. You know, just today in testing, we've thrown so many different things at it for the series, for the team, that no two runs were the same. So I almost couldn't even compare the two. I was just constantly, and then we were dealing with 40-mile-an-hour wind gusts. So it's been a pretty sporty day, that's for sure.
Power says, guys like me and Dixon and Hunter-Reay, we want the cars to be harder to drive because they're too easy right now. But I think maybe is he right? Is it too? It's not too easy to qualify on the edge at Indy. Is it too easy to drive at other places?
I've been saying I agree with him to some extent, but there is always, like anything in life, there's a happy medium. You can't go to one extreme or the other. Just like we've had some races at Texas where, you know, P1 is 5 seconds ahead of P2. Was it light? Yeah. Was it hard to drive? Yeah, but the racing was terrible. That's what you can't have. Like I said, I think we had great racing from 2012 to 2014. Really never had any pack races other than maybe a mistake here and there, you know, Fontana last year. But I think we had great racing. I really enjoyed it. And the best part was anybody in the top 20 had a shot to win the race that day, no matter what.